The blue light of the hologram cast strange shadows across Jinha's face as he stood motionless in the war room. His eyes narrowed as he read the message for the third time. Around him, 12 of Earth's top military and scientific leaders waited in tense silence. "They want our technology," Jinha finally said, looking up at the gathered faces. "The Galactic Council has given Earth 48 hours to hand over all quantum drive research." Harun stepped forward, her lab coat still stained with coffee, from the emergency summons that had pulled her from her work. As head of Earth's quantum physics division, she had led the breakthrough that now put their planet in danger. "If we give them what they want, we lose everything we've worked for," she said. "If we refuse ... She didn't need to finish the thought. Jinha pressed a button, enlarging the hologram so everyone could read the Council's message, to the leaders of Earth. "Your recent quantum drive tests have violated Galactic Council technology restrictions for Class 3 civilizations. All research materials, prototypes, and data must be surrendered to Council representatives within 48 standard hours. Non-compliance will result in immediate sanctions and necessary enforcement actions." Quan, the youngest general in Earth's Defense Force, slammed his fist on the table. "They've kept us down for a century. Every time we make progress, they find a new rule, a new restriction." "This is different," Rex said quietly from his seat in the corner. The old space pilot had seen more of the galaxy than anyone else in the room. "The quantum drive scares them, really scares them." Jinha nodded. "Rex is right. This isn't about rules. The quantum drive would change everything. It would make us equals." The quantum drive was unlike anything humanity had developed before. While Council ships needed weeks to travel between star systems, the quantum drive could make the same journey in hours. It didn't just bend space, it slipped between the fabric of reality itself. "We knew this day might come," Jinha continued. "That's why we kept the main research facility on Mars out of their regular scans." Harun pulled up her own data display. "The prototype fleet is ready, 26 ships, all equipped with working drives." 26 ships against the Council's thousands?" someone asked. "Quality over quantity," Harun replied with a thin smile. "Our ships can be in 3 places at once, literally." Jinha walked to the window, looking up at the night sky. Somewhere up there, Council observers were watching, waiting for Earth's response. They had always been watching. "We need to understand what we're facing," he said. "Jack, what's the latest intelligence?" Jack Morrison, Earth's chief of Interstellar. Intelligence stood up. His face looked tired. He hadn't slept since the first warning of the Council's message came through. "The Council has moved a battle group into our solar system. 16 warships, currently hiding behind Jupiter's magnetic field. They're not waiting for our answer. They're preparing to take what they want." The room fell silent again. Everyone knew Earth's conventional defenses couldn't stop a determined Council attack. "They've never respected us," Quan said bitterly. "To them, we're just clever animals who somehow made it to space." "That's their mistake," Jinha replied. "They see our adaptability as primitive. They don't understand that we evolved to overcome challenges, not avoid them." Harun moved to a secure terminal and entered a series of codes. A new hologram appeared, a detailed map of Council space. "If we're going to fight, we need to strike first," she said. "The quantum drive gives us that option. We can hit their command centers before they even realize we've left Earth." "You're talking about starting a war with the entire Galactic Council," Rex said, though his tone suggested he wasn't opposed to the idea. Jinha looked around the room. "Let's be clear, they started this war the moment they decided to keep humanity contained. We're just finally fighting back." He turned to Jack. "What do we know about their main fleet positions?" Jack brought up another display. "Most of their ships are patrolling the borders with the Outer Rim territories. Their home systems are lightly defended. They've never needed heavy protection before." "Because no one could reach them quickly enough to matter," Harun added. "Until now." Jinha walked slowly around the table, looking at each person in turn. "I need your decision. If we submit, we might survive as their servants. If we fight, we might not survive at all," Rex finished. Quan stood up straight. My forces are ready. We've been training for this possibility for years. The Science Division stands with you, Harin said firmly. One by one, each leader in the room voiced their support. Jinha nodded, his face solemn. Then we move immediately. Harin, activate the Mars facility. Quan, prepare our orbital defenses make. Them think we're planning a conventional defense. Rex, I want you to lead the first strike team. Rex nodded, a grim smile on his weathered face. Where am I hitting? Jinha pointed to the hologram. The heart of the Council itself. Their central world, Luminara. Jack looked alarmed. Luminara has never been successfully attacked in 12,000 years. Then they won't be expecting it, Jinha replied. While they're preparing to punish Earth, we'll bring the fight directly to their doorstep. Harin's terminal beeped with an urgent message. Her face paled as she read it. They're moving, she said. The Council fleet has left Jupiter's orbit. They're heading toward Earth at full speed. Jinha's expression hardened. They're not even waiting for their own deadline. Typical Council arrogance. He turned to the communications officer. Send this message to every human settlement in the solar system. The long night ends. Dawn breaks today. It was a code phrase, years in the planning. Across Earth, Mars, and the moons of Jupiter, hidden preparations would now spring into action. How long until the Council fleet arrives? Jinha asked. 6 hours, Harin answered. And how long until our ships can launch from Mars? 4 hours for full power-up, Jinha nodded. Then we have our window. When they arrive to find Earth seemingly defenseless, our fleet will already be on its way to Luminara. As the room erupted into activity, Jinha took one last look at the Council's message. For centuries, humanity had been treated as an afterthought in galactic politics, a curious species from a backwater planet, useful only for their unusual art and exotic foods. They should have left us alone, he murmured. Or they should have destroyed us when they had the chance. Outside, the stars continued their silent watch over Earth. By tomorrow, the galaxy would never be the same. The Council fleet arrived exactly as predicted. 12 massive warships entered Earth's orbit in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. 4 more remained at the edge of the solar system as backup. From the command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Jinha watched their approach on the main screen. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, the communications officer reported. They're demanding immediate surrender of all quantum technology. Jinha nodded calmly. Let them talk. What's the status of our Mars fleet? Harin's voice came through. The secure channel, all ships powered and ready. Quantum drives at full capacity. We're just waiting for your command. On the screen, the Council ships spread out to cover Earth's major cities. It was a standard intimidation tactic show, the primitive species the weapons that could destroy them, and they would quickly give in. They're powering weapons, Quan reported from the orbital defense station. His voice was tight but controlled. Looks like they're planning a demonstration strike. Jinha's eyes hardened. Where? Energy readings suggest they're targeting the Pacific Research Center. Jinha exchanged a glance with Jack Morrison. The Pacific Center was one of Earth's most visible scientific facilities, but all the real. Quantum research had been moved to Mars years ago. A council was about to destroy an empty building to make a point. Let them fire, Jinha said quietly. We need them fully committed to the attack. Seconds later, a brilliant beam of energy lanced down from the lead council ship. On the monitors, the Pacific Center erupted in flames, the massive complex collapsing in on itself. Casualties? Jinha asked immediately. None, Jack confirmed. The evacuation was completed 2 hours ago. The council ships adjusted position, preparing for their next targets. Their commander clearly believed the first strike would bring immediate surrender. Jinha opened a channel to Mars. Harin, they've made their choice. Launch now. On the red planet's surface, hidden doors slid open in what appeared to be natural canyons. 26 ships rose silently into the thin Martian atmosphere. They were smaller than the Council warships, sleeker, with none of the ornate design that marked Council technology. These were pure function humanity's answer to centuries of oppression, Rex sat in the command chair of the lead ship, named simply Defiance. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, each aware of the historic nature of their mission. All ships reporting ready, his second-in-command reported. Quantum drives aligned, Rex nodded. Set coordinates for Luminara. Execute jump on my mark. He took one last look at the red planet below them, then at the distant blue dot that was Earth. For a moment, he thought about all the generations of humans who had looked up at the stars and dreamed of freedom among them. Mark, he said. The quantum drives activated simultaneously across all 26 ships. Unlike conventional engines, there was no flash of light, no streak across space. One moment the ships were above Mars, and the next they simply weren't there anymore. Back on Earth, the Council commander was growing impatient. His ship had targeted 3 more research facilities, destroying each one in turn. Still, no surrender came from the humans. Final warning, the alien voice boomed through Earth's communication systems. Surrender your quantum technology, or we will target populated areas next. In the command center, Jinha finally responded. This is Earth Command to Council Fleet. We understand your demands. There was a pause, then the Council commander replied, his tone smug. Prepare to receive our landing parties. Any resistance will be met with orbital bombardment. Jinha allowed himself a small smile. I'm afraid that won't be possible. You. See, we're not surrendering. We're just keeping you busy. Confusion was clear in the alien's voice. Explain yourself, human. While you've been destroying empty buildings, our quantum fleet left the solar system. They should be reaching Luminara right about now. There was silence on the channel. Then frantic communication between the council ships as they tried to verify this impossible claim. You're lying, the commander finally said, but doubt had crept into his voice. No ship could reach Luminara that quickly. That's why you wanted our quantum drive technology, isn't it? Jinha replied. Because you knew what it could do. You knew it would change everything. At that moment, alarms began blaring across the Council fleet. Emergency messages were flooding in from their homeworld. Across the vast distance of space, Rex and his fleet had arrived at Luminara. The jewel of the Galactic Council hung before them, its rings of defensive satellites unprepared for ships that could simply appear without warning. Target their orbital defense grid only, Rex ordered. Minimal casualties. This is about sending a message, not starting a massacre. The Earth ships moved with precision that shocked the Luminaran defense forces. Quantum drives allowed them to jump short distances instantly, making them nearly impossible to track or target. One by one, the defense platforms went dark as precise strikes disabled their systems. On the planet below, the council members were being rushed to secure bunkers. In their 12,000 years of dominance, no enemy had ever reached their homeworld. Their entire system of rule was based on the assumption that they were untouchable. That assumption was now shattered. Rex opened a channel to the planet's surface. This is Commander Rex of Earth's quantum fleet. We have disabled your orbital defenses. We have weapons locked on your government centers. We are not here to destroy, but to deliver a message. Earth is no longer your subject. In Earth orbit, the Council commander was receiving frantic orders from his superiors. His mission had changed from intimidation to desperate defense. All ships return to Luminara immediately, he ordered. Jinha watched on the monitors as the Council fleet broke orbit, preparing for the long journey back to their homeworld, a journey that would take them weeks using their conventional drives. Should we stop them? Quan asked from the defense station. Jinha shook his head. Let them go. By the time they get home, everything will have changed. He turned to Jack Morrison. Activate Phase 2? I want teams ready to board their central. Archives when Rex gives the signal, Jack nodded. The quantum jump troops are standing by. Harun's voice came through the comm system again. Jinha, we're getting reports from across the galaxy. Other subjugated worlds have heard about our strike. There are uprisings starting on at least 7 planets. Jinha looked at the star map displaying the vast reach of Council territory. For centuries, they had maintained control through fear and the belief that they couldn't be challenged. It was never about the technology, he said quietly. It was about showing the galaxy that they can be defied. As reports continued to come, Jinha knew that the real battle was just beginning. The Council wouldn't surrender their power easily. But for the first time in human history, Earth was fighting on equal terms, and the galaxy was watching. Rex stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching as Luminara's defense grid went dark section by section. His ships moved like ghosts through the planet's orbital space, appearing and disappearing faster than the Council's systems could track. The Central Defense Hub disabled, his tactical officer reported. All major weapons platforms are offline. Rex nodded, his eyes fixed on the gleaming city continents below. Luminara was beautiful, a world shaped by 12,000 years of uninterrupted prosperity. Its people had never known war, never felt the sting of oppression that Earth had endured for generations. "Any response to our message?" he asked. "Nothing official, sir. But we're picking up a lot of panicked communications from the surface." "They're evacuating the High Council to a bunker beneath the central spire." Rex smiled grimly. "Perfect. That's exactly where we want them." He opened a channel to Earth. "Jinha, Luminara's defenses are down. The Council is on the move to their emergency bunker, ready for Phase 2. Back on Earth, Jinha received the message with satisfaction. He turned to the group of soldiers waiting in the command center, 30 men and women in sleek battle armor, each carrying weapons that combined Earth's best technology with what they'd learned from studying Council designs. "It's time," he said simply. The soldiers formed a tight circle. In the center stood Harin, holding what looked like a small silver Sphera portable quantum drive, the most advanced piece of technology humans had ever created. "Remember your training," she said as she activated the device. "The jump will feel strange, but it only lasts a second. When we arrive, move immediately to your assigned positions." The sphere began to glow with a soft blue light. Harin looked at Jinha. "You don't have to come. As Earth's leader, I started this." Jinha cut her off. "I'll see it through." The blue light expanded, enveloping the entire group. There was a sensation like falling in all directions at once. A moment of impossible pressure, and then they were standing in a vast marble hall with soaring ceilings and walls, lined with alien art. The central spire of Luminara, the heart of the Galactic Council's power. Alarms were already blaring as Council security forces rushed toward them, weapons drawn. The Earth soldiers moved with practiced precision, firing stun weapons that dropped the alien guards before they could even aim. "Move to the bunker entrance," Jinha ordered. "Harin, Jack with me to the archives." The team split smoothly, each group heading to their targets. Jinha led his small team through ornate hallways that had never been meant for combat. The few council members they encountered stared in shock at the human intruders before fleeing or surrendering. "How much farther?" "To the archives?" Jinha asked as they rounded another corner. Jack consulted the holographic map they'd constructed from stolen Council data. 2 more levels down. "But there will be heavy security. The archives contain the Council's most sensitive information." "That's why we're here," Harin reminded them. "The quantum technology is just the beginning. We need to know what else they've been hiding from us." They reached a massive door made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light. 2 council guards stood before it, their weapons already aimed at the approaching humans. "Stop immediately," one of them commanded. "This is a restricted area." Jinha stepped forward, hands raised. "We don't want to hurt you, but we will get through that door." The guards opened fire. Energy bolts sizzled through the air, but Jinha and his team were already moving. Their armor absorbed the few hits that landed, and seconds later, the guards were unconscious on the floor. Harin approached the door, studying its locking mechanism. "Quantum encryption." "Very advanced," she smiled. "But not as advanced as what?" "We've developed." She placed a small device against the door. It pulsed once, and the massive barrier slid open silently. Inside was a vast chamber filled with glowing data crystals, the collected knowledge of the Galactic Council, stored in a form meant to last millennia. Start the download, Jinha ordered. We need everything they have on Earth and on any other species they've suppressed. Jack and Harin moved quickly, connecting their devices to the central console. Data began flowing immediately, thousands of years of secrets being copied in minutes. Jinha, Jack called, his voice tight with shock. You need to see this. Jinha joined him at the console. On the screen was a document titled Species Threat Assessment, Humans. It was dated nearly 300 years earlier when Earth was still struggling with its first primitive spaceflights. They've been watching us since before we reached our own moon, Jack said. And look at this classification. The document labeled humans as Class Alpha Evolutionary Anomaly, the highest threat level in the Council system. They feared us. Before we even knew they existed, Jinha murmured. Harin had found another file. It's worse than that. Look at these intervention records. The data showed centuries of deliberate council actions, engineered economic collapses to slow Earth's development, introduced diseases to reduce population growth, even assassinations of key scientists who came too close to breakthroughs. They've, been actively holding us back, Harin said, her voice shaking with anger. All those setbacks, all those natural disasters, they were attacks. Jinha's communicator beeped. Jinha, this is Quan. The bunker team has secured the High Council. All 12 members are in custody. No casualties on either side. Good work, Jinha replied. Hold position. We'll join you soon. As Harin and Jack continued downloading data, Jinha explored deeper into the archives. He found records of other species that had shown promise only to be deliberately stunted, or even exterminated when they developed too quickly. The Council hadn't just oppressed Earth, they had been doing this across the galaxy for thousands of years, maintaining their power by ensuring no other species could rise to challenge them. Download complete, Harin announced. We have everything, Jinha nodded. Let's go meet the Council. They made their way to the bunker level, where Quan and his team had secured a large chamber. Inside, 12 aliens of different species sat in a row, their ornate robes marking them as the High Council, the rulers of most of the known galaxy. Jinha entered the room slowly, looking at each council member in turn. Some showed fear, others anger, but most simply seemed shocked that humans had managed to reach them. I am Jinha, representing Earth, he said simply. For centuries, your council has suppressed my people, prevented our growth, and treated us as inferiors. Today, that ends. The head counselor, a tall being with pale blue skin, spoke in a voice that trembled slightly. You have no idea what you've done. The galaxy exists in balance because we maintain order. Species like yours, species like mine? Jinha interrupted. You mean species that evolve and adapt? Species that refuse to accept artificial limitations? He held up a data crystal containing the evidence they'd found. We know what you've done, not just to Earth, but to dozens of worlds. You've committed genocide when it suited you. You've, engineered wars to keep emerging civilizations weak. The council members looked at each other nervously. What do you want? Another counselor asked. Resources? Territory? Name your price for leaving Luminara. Jinha shook his head. We're not here for concessions. We're here for justice. He turned to Quan. Secure them for transport. They will stand trial for what they've done, not just to humans, but to every species they've oppressed. As the council members were led away, Rex joined Jinha in the chamber. Our ships have secured the entire government district, he reported, and we're receiving messages from at least 20 worlds offering support or requesting assistance against council forces. Jinha nodded. The galaxy is changing faster than I expected. What now? Rex asked. Jinha looked around at the opulent bunker, built to protect rulers who had never imagined they could be reached. Now, he said, we show the galaxy what really happened here. And we offer them something the council never did. What's that? Rex asked. A choice, Jinha replied. The freedom to determine their own future. Outside, the news of Earth's impossible. Victory was spreading across the stars at the speed of light. The age of the council was ending. And humanity was just getting started. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within 24 hours of Earth's strike on Luminara, every inhabited world had heard the impossible story. Humans had captured the High Council. The untouchable rulers of the galaxy were now prisoners. Jinha stood at the window of what had once been the Council's private meeting chamber. The view of Luminara's capital city was breathtaking, towers of crystal and light stretching to the horizon, connected by graceful bridges that seemed to float in the air. "It's beautiful," Harin said, joining him at the window. Hard to believe something so ugly could hide behind such beauty. Jinha nodded. "That's how they've always operated. A beautiful lie covering a terrible truth." Behind them, Jack Morrison was coordinating the massive data analysis operation. Teams of Earth's best scientists and historians were sorting through the Council archives, uncovering centuries of secrets. "Jinha, you need to see this," Jack called, his face grim. "We found their species management protocols." Jinha and Harin moved to the large display table where Jack had pulled up the files. The screen showed a complex chart dividing all known intelligent species into categories. They classified every species in the galaxy based on their potential threat to Council power, Jack explained. Humans were in the highest threat category, what they called alpha evolutionary anomalies. Harin studied the chart. There are only 4 other species in that category. "What happened to them?" Jack's expression darkened. 3 were contained through engineered plagues that appeared natural. The 4th had their planet's crust destabilized to create what looked like a natural disaster. "They were exterminated," Jinha said quietly. "And we were next on their list." The attack on Earth wasn't just about our quantum drive, Harin realized. They were planning to eliminate us completely. The room fell silent as the full weight of what they had discovered settled over them. The Council hadn't just been oppressing humanity, they had been preparing to wipe them out. Jinha's communicator beeped. "Jinha here." "Sir, this is Quan. The Council members are ready for questioning." "As you requested." "I'll be right there," Jinha replied. He turned to Harin and Jack. "Keep digging. I want to know everything they've been hiding." The detention area had been set up in what was once the Council's emergency command center. 12 separate rooms held the 12 members of the High Council. Jinha had decided to question each one individually. Away from the influence of their colleagues, he entered the first room where the head counselor waited. The tall, blue-skinned alien looked diminished without his ceremonial robes, but his eyes still held the arrogance of someone who had ruled for centuries. "I hope you're satisfied with the chaos you've created," the counselor said as Jinha sat down across from him. "Do you have any idea what you've done to the galaxy?" "We've freed it," Jinha replied simply. The counselor laughed, a harsh sound. "Freed it? You've doomed it." The council maintained order. "Without us, there will be war, collapse, suffering on a scale you can't imagine." Jinha placed a data pad on the table between them. "We found your species management protocols. We know what you are planning for Earth." The counselor's blue skin paled slightly, but he didn't deny it. It was necessary. "Your kind develops too quickly, adapts too readily. The models showed that within 300 years, humans would dominate the galaxy. So you decided to eliminate us before that could happen." "It would have been painless," the counselor said, as if that made it better. "An engineered virus that would have appeared natural, quick, merciful." Jinha controlled his anger with effort. "And the other species you eliminated? Was that merciful too?" "It was necessary for stability," the counselor insisted. "Some species are simply too dangerous to allow unfettered growth. Who gave you the right to make that decision?" The counselor leaned forward. "We took that right, human. 12,000 years ago, when the galaxy was tearing itself apart in endless wars, we established order, we created peace." "You created stagnation," Ja countered. "You decided that the galaxy should stop evolving, that no one should advance beyond where you wanted them to be. And look what happened when we failed to contain you," the counselor gestured around him. "In one day, you've destroyed 12,000 years of stability." Jinha stood up. "No, we've ended 12,000 years of tyranny, and now you'll answer for it." He left the room, his mind racing with the implications of what he'd learned. In the command center, Rex was waiting with news from across the galaxy. Council. Military forces are in disarray, Rex reported. Some are surrendering, others are trying to regroup. But without central command, they're not coordinating effectively. What about the other worlds? Jinha asked. That's more complicated, Rex said. Some are celebrating, others are in panic. Many have never known anything but council rule. They don't know what to do without someone giving them orders. Jinha nodded thoughtfully. That's exactly what. The council wanted dependency. They didn't just rule the galaxy. They made it impossible for anyone to imagine life without them. Harin joined them, excitement clear on her face. Jinha, we found something incredible in the archives. The council wasn't just hiding technology from other species, they were hiding entire fields of science. She activated a holographic display, showing technical schematics that even Jinha, with all his knowledge of advanced technology, couldn't fully understand. What am I looking at? He asked. The council's real technology, Harin explained. What they kept for themselves while giving. Watered-down versions to the rest of the galaxy. There's dimensional engineering, consciousness, transfer, even biological immortality. Jinha stared at the display in shock. They weren't just keeping us down. They were living as gods while the rest of us fought for scraps. And that's not... Oh, Harin continued. We found records of at least 30 species who developed technology that threatened council power. All of them suffered natural disasters that set them back centuries or wiped them out completely. Jinha's communicator beeped again. It was Quan. Sir, we have a situation. We're receiving distress calls from multiple worlds. Council military commanders are threatening to bomb civilian populations if we don't release the High Council. Jinha's expression hardened. Put me through on a galaxy-wide broadcast. It's time everyone heard the truth. Minutes later, Jinha stood before a communication array that would carry his words to every corner of council space. Behind him stood Harin, Rex, Jack, and Quanearth's leaders united in this historic moment. People of the galaxy, Jinha began, his voice steady and clear. I am Jinha of Earth. Yesterday, forces from my world took control of Luminara and captured the High Council. Some call this an act of war. It was not. It was an act of justice. He gestured to the screens behind him, which began showing evidence. From the council archives, the plans for genocide, the suppressed technologies, the manufactured disasters that had killed billions. For 12,000 years, the council has maintained power through deception and murder. They have deliberately held back the development of every species in the galaxy. They have engineered plagues and disasters to eliminate any who showed. Too much promise. Jinha paused, letting his words sink in across thousands of worlds. Today that ends. The council will stand trial for their crimes, and the galaxy will finally have the freedom to determine its own future. As his message reached the farthest stars, Jinha knew that the real challenge was just beginning. Ending the council's rule had been the easy part, building something better. In its place would be the true test of humanity's worth. 3 days after Earth's forces took control of Luminara, Jinha called an emergency meeting. The large conference room that had once hosted council strategy sessions now held Earth's leadership team and representatives from 20 other worlds, who had arrived to see the truth for themselves. What we've discovered goes beyond anything we imagined, Jinha began, his voice grave. Harin, show them. Harin activated the central display. Images and data filled the air above the table records, spanning thousands of years of council rule. The council didn't just control technology, she explained. They controlled evolution itself. The alien representatives murmured in shock as Harin showed them the evidence. For millennia, the council had been secretly introducing genetic modifications to limit the development of other species. They had altered food supplies, water systems, and even atmospheric composition to subtly change how species evolved. On my world, they told us our slow technological progress was due to our natural limitations, said a representative from Teller. A world known for its brilliant mathematicians who somehow never quite managed to apply their theories to advanced technology. Now we know why, Harin said. The Council introduced compounds into your planet's water that specifically limited certain neural connections, the ones needed to make the leap from theory to application. Jinha watched the faces around the table as understanding dawned. The anger he saw reflected his own. But there was something else, too, a growing sense of possibility as species began to realize what they might become without the Council's invisible chains. "There's more," Jack Morrison said, stepping forward. "We found evidence of at least 47 advanced civilizations that the Council completely erased from history. The display changed to show star systems where entire species had been systematically eliminated when they developed too quickly or in directions the Council couldn't control. The most recent was only 80 years ago," Jack continued. "A species called the Novan developed faster-than-light communication that would have made the Council's control of information impossible. The Council engineered what appeared to be a solar flare that sterilized their world." A representative from a world near Novan space stood up, visibly shaken. "We were told the Novans died from a natural disaster. Our scientists even studied the flare pattern to help us prepare for similar events. There was nothing natural about it," Jinha said quietly. "The Council has maintained power through genocide disguised as tragedy." Rex, who had been analyzing the Council's military records, added his own findings. "They've been staging conflicts between worlds to keep potential allies divided. The border wars between the Centauri and Proxima systems, the trade disputes in the Outer Rim, all orchestrated by Council operatives." The room fell silent as the full scope of the Council's manipulation became clear. It wasn't just oppression, it was the careful, calculated management of an entire galaxy of species, all to ensure the Council's continued dominance. Quan entered the room, his face showing the strain of the past few days. "Jinha, we have a new situation. Council loyalist forces have gathered at Outpost Sigma. They're threatening to destroy the station unless we release the High Council." Jinha frowned. "How many ships?" 32 warships, all heavily armed." The representatives looked alarmed. "Earth's quantum fleet numbered only 26 ships, and some of those were needed to maintain control of Luminara. They think we're stretched too thin," Jean said. "And they're right." Harin stepped closer to Jinha. "There's something else you need to see, something we found in the deepest part of the archives." She led Jinha to a private display and brought up a file marked with the highest security classification. It showed detailed scans of Earth from 300 years earlier. "What am I looking at?" Jinha asked. "Genetic analysis of early humans." Harin explained. "The Council didn't just fear us because we evolved quickly. They feared us because we weren't evolving naturally." Jinha stared at the data. "What does that mean?" "According to these records, human DNA contains markers that don't match any evolutionary pattern they've ever seen. The Council believed that humans were ... Harin hesitated. Engineered? Engineered? By whom? They don't know. The records show they spent centuries trying to figure it out. They found similar markers in the other alpha evolutionary anomaly species, the ones they wiped out." Jinha tried to process this revelation. "Are you saying humans were created by some unknown species?" "Not created from nothing," Harin clarified. "More like ... guided, pushed in certain directions?" "The Council believes some ancient civilization was seeding the galaxy with species designed to evolve in specific ways." Jinha shook his head in disbelief. "Why would anyone do that?" "The Council had a theory. They believed it was a form of long-term warfare. Create species that would eventually rise up and challenge whoever controlled the galaxy. So they've been killing us because they thought we were someone else's weapon?" Harin nodded. "Essentially, yes, and the more they studied us, the more convinced they became. Our adaptability, our creativity, our drive to explore, they saw all of it as evidence that we were designed to eventually take control." Jinha was silent for a long moment, trying to make sense of this new information. Finally, he looked up. "Does it matter?" Whether we evolved naturally or were somehow guided, we are what we are. And what we choose to do now is what defines us? He returned to the main conference room, where the representatives were still discussing the Council's crimes against their worlds. We have a choice to make, Jinha announced, bringing the room to attention. Council loyalists are gathering their forces. They believe that without the High Council, the galaxy will collapse into chaos. They're willing to fight to restore the old order. And what do you believe? Asked the representative from Teller. Jinha looked around the room, meeting the eyes of beings from worlds that had suffered under council rule for thousands of years. I believe the galaxy deserves the truth and the freedom to decide its own future. He activated the main display, showing a map of council space, millions of stars, billions of worlds, countless lives that had been controlled and manipulated for millennia. The council maintained power by keeping us divided and ignorant. Jinha continued, they made us believe we needed them. They made us fear each other more than we feared them. He turned to Rex. Prepare the fleet. We'll meet the loyalists at Outpost Sigma. To fight them? Rex asked. Jinha shook his head. To show them what we found. To offer them the same choice we're offering everyone else. Truth or continued deception. Haran stepped forward. Jinha, there's something else in the archives. You should know. The Council didn't just fear humans. They feared what would happen if humans ever made contact with the other engineered species. Why? Because their models predicted that together we would be unstoppable. Jinha considered this. Are any of these other species still out there? According to the records, one survived the Council's purges. They're called the Arathi. The Council couldn't find their homeworld, so they couldn't eliminate them completely. For the first time in days, Jinha smiled. Then perhaps it's time we found them ourselves. He turned back to the gathered representatives. The Council believed that certain species were too dangerous to be allowed to develop freely. They feared what we might become. Now we have the chance to show them and ourselves what we really are. As the meeting continued, Jinha looked out at the stars visible through the chamber's vast windows. Somewhere out there, the truth about humanity's origins waited to be discovered. But first they had a galaxy to free, and the Council's long night of control was finally coming to an end. The Great Hall of Justice on Luminara had never been used to try members of the High Council. For 12,000 years they had been above the law. They were the law. Now they sat in the defendant's box, their ornate robes replaced with simple, gray clothing. Jinha stood before the assembled representatives of 50 worlds. The trial was being broadcast to every corner of the galaxy, watched by trillions of beings who had lived their entire lives under Council rule. We gather today, not for revenge, Jinha began, his voice steady and clear, but for truth. For 12,000 years, the High Council has ruled the galaxy. Today they answer for how they used that power. The evidence was overwhelming. For 5 days, Jinha and his team presented records from the Council's own archives. They showed the deliberate suppression of technology, the engineered conflicts between worlds, and the genocides disguised as natural disasters. Most damning were the Council's plans for Eartha. Detailed strategy to eliminate humanity through what would have appeared to be a natural plague on the 6th day. Jinha called the head counselor to testify. The blue-skinned alien walked to the witness stand with his head held high, still carrying himself with the arrogance of one born to rule. You have seen the evidence, Jinha said to him. Do you deny the Council's actions? The counselor looked out at the assembled representatives. I deny nothing. Everything we did was necessary for galactic stability, including the elimination of entire species. Especially that, the counselor replied without hesitation. You've seen our models. Species like yours, like the other alpha evolutionary anomalies, develop too quickly. They disrupt the balance. They cannot be controlled. And you believe it is your right to control how other species develop? The counselor leaned forward. Someone must maintain order. Without the Council, the galaxy would descend into chaos. Into war. We prevented that. By starting wars yourselves? Jinha asked. By killing billions? We sacrificed millions to save trillions, the counselor said firmly. That is the burden of true leadership. Jinha turned to the display screen, which showed the faces of the representatives watching from their homeworlds. And what about the technologies you kept for yourselves? The medical advances that could have saved countless lives across the galaxy? For the first time, the counselor hesitated. Advanced technology in the wrong hands. In any hands but yours, Jinha interrupted. You didn't just maintain order. You ensured that no one could ever challenge your power. The questioning continued for hours. One by one, each council member was called to testify. Some showed remorse, others defiance, but none denied what they had done. On the final day of the trial, Jinha addressed the gathered representatives one last time. You have heard the evidence? You have heard the council's defense. Now you must decide their fate and the fate of the galaxy. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. The High Council was found guilty of crimes against sentient beings. On a scale never before documented, Jinha stood to deliver the sentence. The hall fell completely silent. For 12,000 years you have decided the fate of trillions. You have chosen who would advance and who would be held back, who would live and who would die. He paused, looking at each council member in turn. Many have called for your execution. They believe that only your deaths can balance the scales of justice. The head counselor stared back defiantly, clearly expecting this outcome. But that is not our sentence, Jinha continued. Death would be too simple, too quick. Instead, you will live to see everything you built transformed. He gestured to Harin, who activated a holographic display showing a small, beautiful world with 2 moons. This is Harmony, a planet at the edge of what was once council space. It will be your home for the remainder of your natural lives. You will have no technology beyond what is needed for basic survival. No communications with the outside galaxy. No power over anyone but yourselves. The council members looked at each other in shock. For beings who had controlled the fate of entire civilizations, this punishment was worse than death. You feared species that evolved too quickly, Jinha said. Now you will experience what it means to start over, to build something with only your own hands and minds. The head counselor stood up, his voice shaking with rage. You cannot do this. The galaxy needs the council. Without us, there will be chaos, war. Perhaps, Jinha acknowledged, freedom always carries risk. But it is not your place to decide that risk is too great for others to bear. As the council members were led away, Rex approached Jinha. The transport to Harmony is ready? Security is in place to ensure they can never leave. Jinha nodded. Make sure they have everything they need to survive comfortably. This isn't about making them suffer. It's about giving them time to understand what they've done. Later that evening, Jinha met with Harin, Rex, Quan, and Jack in what had once been the council's private garden. The beauty of Luminara's 3 moons reflected in the still waters of an ornamental pond. What happens now? Quan asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Jinha looked up at the stars. Now comes the hard part, building something better. Harin sat beside him. The representatives are already arguing about how to organize the new galactic government. Some want a direct democracy, others a federation of independent systems. Let them argue, Jinha said. That's what freedom looks like. Messy, complicated, sometimes frustrating, but real. Rex looked troubled. There are still council loyalists out there. Military commanders, administrators, true believers who think we've doomed the galaxy to chaos. They're not wrong to be concerned, Jinha admitted. The council maintained stability for 12,000 years. Change won't be easy. Jack Morrison had been analyzing data from across the galaxy. We're already seeing signs of rapid development on worlds where council restrictions have been lifted. New technologies, cultural renaissances, species reclaiming their own histories. And the Arathi? Jinha asked. Any progress finding them? Harin nodded. We've identified several possible locations based on council records. I've prepared a team to make contact. Jinha stood and walked to the edge of the garden, where he could see the lights of Luminara's capital city stretching to the horizon. Citizens were in the streets, some celebrating their newfound freedom, others gathering in quiet groups, uncertain about the future. The council believed that some species were too dangerous to be allowed to develop freely, he said. They feared what we might become. Now we have the chance to show them and ourselves what we really are. He turned back to his friends. The council ruled through fear and control. We need to offer something different. What did you have in mind? Rex asked. Jinha smiled. Hope, cooperation, the chance for every world to find its own path while working together on the challenges that affect us all. Quan looked skeptical. That sounds good, but how do we actually make it work? We start by sharing everything we've found, Jinha replied. All the technology the council kept for themselves, all the knowledge they hoarded. We make it available to everyone. Some worlds aren't ready for advanced technology, Jack pointed out. The council wasn't wrong about that. Then we help them prepare, Jinha said simply. We offer guidance, not control, support, not suppression. As they continued their discussion late into the night, plans for a new galactic order began to take shape. Not a perfect system, nothing created by imperfect beings could be perfect, but something built on freedom rather than fear and across the stars, worlds that had lived in the shadow of council rule for millennia began to glimpse the first light of a new dawn. 5 years passed since the day Earth's quantum fleet appeared above Luminara, 5 years since the High Council fell. 5 years of tremendous change across the galaxy. Harin stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, watching ships arrive from dozens of worlds. The massive space station orbited a neutral point between 3 major star systems, purposely built away from any single world's influence. Its graceful rings rotated slowly, generating gravity for the 10,000 beings who now called it home. Quite a view, isn't it? Rex said, joining her at the viewport. Age had added a few more lines to his face, but his eyes remained sharp and alert. Harin nodded. I never imagined we'd see something like this in our lifetime. Below them, the Grand Assembly Hall was filling with representatives from 300 worlds. Today marked the formal signing of the Galactic Charter, the document that would officially establish the new Federation of Free Worlds. Jinha's about to speak, Quan called from the doorway. Like Rex, he had aged, though the cybernetic arm he now wore, a result of an assassination attempt 2 years earlier, gave him a distinctive appearance. Together, they made their way to the Assembly Hall. The vast chamber had been designed to echo the natural meeting places of dozens of species elements, of forest clearings, underwater grottos, and mountain peaks all blended into one harmonious space. Jinha stood at the center, waiting for the hall to quiet. He looked older, more weathered than 5 years ago, but his eyes still burned with the same determination. Friends, allies, fellow travelers among the stars, he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall without. Technological assistance, one of the subtle design features of the chamber. 5 years ago, we gathered in the shadow of the council's fall, uncertain what would follow. Today we meet to build something new. Harin watched the faces of the assembled representatives. Some species she recognized immediately: the tall, graceful Tellarites, the crystalline Vox, the amphibious Marians. Others were new to her, worlds that had been isolated under council rule now stepping onto the galactic stage for the first time. Our path has not been easy, Jinha continued. We have faced resistance from those who benefited from the old order. We have struggled to heal wounds that span millennia. We have made mistakes. This was typical of Jinha acknowledging failures as openly as successes. It was one of the reasons he had earned the trust of so many worlds. But we have also witnessed wonders, worlds reclaiming their ancient knowledge, species rediscovering their potential, technologies that heal rather than harm spreading to those who need them most. On the main display, images appeared showing the changes of the past 5 years. A Tellarite city where new buildings seemed to grow organically from the ground, the result of their newly unleashed architectural genius. A Marian ocean sanctuary, where once extinct species now thrived. An asteroid belt transformed into a vast solar energy collection system by the Vox. The Council believed that freedom would lead to chaos, Junha said. They were partly right. Freedom is messy. It is unpredictable. It sometimes leads to conflict. But it also leads to this. The display changed to show children of different species learning together at one of the new Federation academies. Then it shifted to a medical center where diseases that had plagued certain worlds for centuries were being cured through shared knowledge. This is what they feared most, Jinha continued. Not that we would destroy each other, but that we would join together. That we would share our strengths rather than exploit each other's weaknesses. Harin felt a presence beside her and turned to see Jack Morrison. He had been away for months, leading the expedition to find the Arathi. "You're back," she whispered. "Did you find them?" Jack nodded, a small smile on his face. "Just in time. They're here." Harin followed his gaze to a group standing near the back of the hall. They were humanoid, but clearly not human. Their skin had a subtle iridescence, and their eyes were larger, with pupils that seemed to shift color as they moved. "The Council hunted them for thousands of years," Jack whispered. "They survived by hiding their true nature, blending in with other species. When we finally made contact, they didn't trust us at first. What changed their mind? We showed them what we're building here, and we told them we know about our shared origins." On the main floor, Jinha was approaching the conclusion of his speech. "Today we sign the charter not as rulers and subjects, not as advanced and primitive, but as equals. Each world sovereign in its own space. Each species free to develop according to its own nature. All united by principles of mutual respect, shared knowledge, and collective defense." He gestured to the document displayed before him, the Galactic Charter, the work of 5 years of negotiation and compromise. "This is not the end of our journey, it is barely the beginning. There will be challenges we cannot yet imagine. There will be disagreements that test our commitment to these principles. But if we face them together, there is nothing we cannot overcome." One by one, representatives approached to add their signatures or equivalent marks to the charter. Some pressed handprints, others used traditional seals. Still others added genetic markers or crystalline patterns unique to their species. When the last signature was recorded, a cheer rose from the assembled beings, a strange harmony of sounds, from hundreds of different vocal structures all expressing the same joy. Later, at the celebration that followed, Harin found Jinha standing alone on a small balcony overlooking the station's central garden. "Shouldn't you be inside enjoying your triumph?" she asked, joining him. Jinha smiled. "It's not my triumph. It belongs to everyone who helped build it." "The Arathi are here," Harin said. "Jack found them," Jinha nodded. "I know, I spoke with them earlier. They've agreed to share what they know about our origins. Are you sure we want to know? What if the Council was right? What if we were created as weapons?" Jinha looked up at the stars visible through the station's transparent dome. "The Council believed our purpose was fixed by our creators, that we were destined to conquer or destroy. But they missed something fundamental about humans, about all intelligent life." "What's that?" "We choose our own purpose," Jinha said. "Simply, whatever we were meant to be, we decide what we become." Harin considered this. "And what have we chosen to become?" "Builders, I hope, healers, explorers," Jinha smiled. "The Council saw the galaxy as something to control. We have the chance to see it as something to nurture." From inside, they could hear the sounds of the celebration music from a dozen worlds, laughter in 100 different forms, the buzz of conversation in languages that had never been spoken in the same room before Council rule ended. "There's something I haven't told you," Jinha said after a moment. "The quantum drive research has advanced. We found a way to reach beyond our galaxy." Harin's eyes widened. "You mean there are other galaxies within our reach now? Other civilizations? Perhaps other histories we know nothing about?" "Are we ready for that?" Harin asked. "We've barely put our own house in order," Jinha smiled. "That's why we won't rush. We'll take the time to build something worth sharing with whoever we might meet out there." He looked back at the celebration. At the hundreds of species that had been enemies or strangers just 5 years earlier, the Council's greatest fear was that species like ours would rise up and take control of the galaxy, Jinha said. They never considered that we might rise up and set it free. As they rejoined the celebration, Harin thought about how far they had come. From a single act of defiance Earth's refusal to surrender its quantum, technology had grown a movement that transformed the galaxy. The Council had been right to fear humanity's potential, but they had feared the wrong thing. It wasn't humanity's capacity for destruction that truly threatened them. It was their capacity for change, for hope, for seeing possibilities where others saw only threats. And as the celebration continued around her, Harin knew that the true legacy of Earth's retaliation wasn't the fall of the Council. It was the rise of something better in its place.